This is the first of two screencasts on Emily Dickinson text notes on the poetry selections that I included for this week. We're going to talk about Because I Could Not Stop for Death first. And so six stanzas broken into four section quatrains, which are the four lines. And as was pretty common with Emily Dickinson, she didn't usually adhere to a set rhyme scheme. She alternated a good bit. She'd have some half rhymes. Sometimes there'd be no rhymes, um, slant rhymes, those kinds of things. But it does have a regular meter. It switches back and forth between tetrameter and trimeter here. So the first and the third lines have 8 syllables each. And then lines 2 and 4 have 6 syllables each, and it's unstressed because I could not stop for death. So you have quite a common pattern there throughout. You also notice that she does a lot of interesting things with punctuation in her poems. That punctuation often stops and starts things, and it affects the way that you read it. So her tone overall throughout this poem is very calm until she gets closer to the end, where we see things, the diction changes a little bit. Kind of becomes a little bit more sinister. It seems very peaceful at the beginning and kind of switches into something darker, but she does return back to that peaceful feeling at the end. So death here and immortality, she is personifying as people. They are literally like characters in the poem. So she says, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. And death here in the beginning is very, he's a kind gentleman driving the carriage. He picks her up. She didn't have time to stop, so he stopped for her kindly. And then in the carriage along with them is Immortality, who's the other character. And the way that it kind of starts out, we kind of feel at ease with death, or we get the sense that she feels at ease with death. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and leisure too, for his civility. I didn't have anything else to going on. It was Saturday afternoon, we were in no hurry, no rush, doing a little sightseeing. So they start passing all of these kind of scenes of peaceful scenes. The school with the children playing outside at recess, the fields of gazing grain, the setting sun, which is often an image or a symbol of death in other works. We pass the setting sun, and then we have a twist, like a change. Or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. So she's in death clothes here. She's wearing her gossamer gown, tulle on around like a dress with gossamer, which is like a silky kind of fluffy satinish. I don't know. It's fancy fabric, something that you would be buried in. And so there's that little shift. It's kind of a little bit more sinister. We passed before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. Oh, I'm sorry, paused. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. So here they are. We've got that change. We're passing on these children at play and the gazing grain in the field. And now the setting sun is passing us. I'm cold because I'm not dressed appropriately for this ride in my funereal clothes. And then we pause before a house, which is so obviously a grave. swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible. The cornice, the headstone there is in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity. Um, so she realizes that they've been on this slow ride for quite some time, and it had been quite a while since she even really noticed that that they are it's eternal. It's an eternal loop. They're on this ride. Um, so she calmly kind of accepts what's happening, has a moment of kind of ill feeling when she realizes that the air is a little chilly, and her, I think that's like freshly dead kind of thing. And then she continues on, and she realizes that they've been on this same trip for quite some time. Lots of poems that she writes about death, and even more so being dead already and writing like after death. Dickinson's a very strange character. Interesting. All right, let's take another death poem for you. I picked couple of really good death poems for you, since death seems to be the theme of the day. We got Fly Buzz. I heard a fly buzz when I died. You notice that her poetry picks up a line of the first line of the poem is the title. They would often be numbered, or they would have the title would be the first line of the poem. Again here, 4 stanzas, 4-line quatrains. She's a very loose rhyme scheme here, A, B, C, B, but she changes those end sounds between the stanzas, though. The majority of the rhymes in the 4 stanzas are half rhymes, which means that only part of the words rhyme. For example, like room and storm. There are 2 example of a half rhyme, a slant rhyme, they're often called too. So we have, I heard a fly buzz when I died, and she intends that to be kind of a jolt to the reader. It seems that she's hyper aware of the fact that she is past, and at the moment of her death, this is when she hears the fly buzz. So I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. We immediately shift to the fact that the speaker of the poem is now dead, as she is reading, or as she is kind of discussing this moment of her death. And so there's a sharp contrast between how still the room is and how still the air is, and this irritating little fly that's buzzing around, that's kind of breaking that. She alludes that to the calm between the storm, like when you're having severe weather and you have a still moment where the eye of the storm is. She says, stanza 2, the eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. So her focus, she begins to kind of describe the people that are sitting around her, that everybody's eyes are dry, and everybody seems to be okay. They'd already kind of cried all their tears that they had to cry. So she can hear the breath of the people around her as they're kind of not holding it, but they're kind of holding their breath, I guess, for the last moment of death. Not really sure if the king here refers to God or to the angel of death. Kind of like one of those, insert your meaning here. But she believes that he is going to show up at the moment of her death. He's going to between that last moment, that last time that she takes her last breath, to when the king shows up. So, in the third stanza there, I willed my keepsake signed away, what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly. So, she had everything together. She had all of her affairs in order. She had all of her affairs in order. She had wheeled away all of her keepsakes. And the room was peaceful. It was time. There was nothing surprising about this death. Everybody was expecting it. Everybody had already kind of cried out all their tears, getting used to it. And then there came that pesky fly. With blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me, and then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see. So she's anxious now. She's uncertain because this fly has disturbed her moment of death. It's fluttering around, buzzing, trying to figure out where it can land, and she's just honed in on this fly. So, she also says between the light. So, near death experience, you see the light, go into the light, don't go into the light, Carol Ann, all that good stuff. It was supposed to be this peaceful experience where she just walks into the light after taking her last breath, but suddenly she can't see anything anymore. She can't see to see, because this fly has disrupted that peaceful moment of her death. And then the windows failed, so she's shut into darkness. And that freaking fly is still there. And so she wanted it to be perfect. She had everything in order. She wanted it to be, surrounded by people who love her and peacefulness. But the fly ruins it. And the darkness comes. And it makes her feel uncertain and uneasy. Interesting take on that. Okay, this one will probably get interrupted midway. I felt a funeral in my brain, continuing that trend. She writes everything through this keen sense of hearing in this poem. She hears everything that's going on around her. She feels it, but she can't see it. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. So she's dead, obviously. And she's feeling this funeral, I'm assuming, from the depths of her casket, and what she's hearing. It's kind of a sensorial experience. So, most of us have been to a funeral before, so we kind of know what happens at a funeral. But have you ever wondered what it would be like to experience a funeral from in the casket? Probably not, but apparently Emily Dickinson spent a little bit of time thinking about these kinds of things. She continues to describe these sounds. And when they were all seated, a service like a drum kept beating till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul. With those same boots of lead again, and space began to toll. As all the heavens were a bell, and being but an ear, and I in silence some strange race, wrecked and solitary here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down, and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. We'll stop there, and we'll come back in just a minute, and we'll finish discussing, I felt a funeral in my brain.